What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about this plasma cutter that I got off of Amazon. It's the BESTARC BTC500DP. This is the dual voltage Pilot arc version. You can get this for, I believe it's $240 off of Amazon. Not a bad price. It's supposed to be 50 amps, so we'll see how this thing does. We're going to talk about why I chose this one, do a quick little unboxing, kind of how you're going to get it when it arrives to you, some of the stuff that it comes with. Now, when you order it online, it says it comes with, I believe it's 2 tips and like 2 electrodes. But when you look at the box, I think it's somewhere right around here, it talks about coming with 5 tips, 5 electrodes. So we'll go through here and see what it comes with, and see if this thing feels like it's of decent quality. I mean, it's made in China and it's $240, so I guess we'll see. There's not a whole lot of reviews or videos on this specific model. There's a bunch for the Yes Welder, and there's some for the Reboot, and then a couple of the other cheaper ones that Amazon sells, but not a whole lot for this BESTARC. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started with unboxing this. It's not going to be like an overly overdrawn unboxing video, but this will, be a quick one. We'll pull it out and then get to it and kind of show you what it comes with. So let's get to it.
Check it out.
So I already opened this up earlier when I got it, just to kind of do a quick run through to see, what it had in here. First impression, it is packaged pretty well. I wasn't disappointed in the packaging. Nothing was damaged or dented or broken that I could tell upon, my first unboxing of this. So we'll go ahead, let's just get to it. So inside of it, obviously, you're gonna have the plasma cutter itself. We'll just set it off to the side. And then you're going to have your box that's going to have all your components and consumables. Everything else is just the packaging foam. So when you first get it, this is where all of your accessories, consumables are going to be located. It's actually packaged pretty well. Surprisingly, for being $240 and being Chinese, it wasn't just all tossed in the box in a couple bags or whatever. They actually took the time to kind of separately package these components or parts. So opening it up, you're going to have an owner's manual or operation manual. It's actually pretty decent. So some of the stuff is in color and fairly well written. So, a lot of the cheaper stuff usually doesn't even have a manual that looks like this. So kudos to them for including a pretty nice manual. I haven't read through it yet, but I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. So you've got a manual in there. Then, of course, you're going to have your grounding clamp, which is pretty decent. I don't think there's really much of a problem with it. You got your quick connect fitting on that side. Then it also comes with some air hose. Going to have to figure out exactly why it has this, if this is just extra or if we have to, use this for something else. So we'll probably have to dive into the manual to figure that out, but it does come with some air hose. And then, of course, comes with the consumables. So on the box, it says it comes with 5 tips, and obviously that's not the case. You're only going to have 2 tips and a couple hose clamps, and it looks like some thread tape right here. Not exactly sure why they included that, but again, we'll figure that out here in a little bit. And then also it comes with your 220 to 110 or 240 to 220, depending on what part of the country you live in or who you're talking to. Everyone kind of refers to it differently. But what I like about this, and one of the reasons why I got this specific model over some of the other ones, a lot of the other ones, it'll have a 110 or a 120 plug that's on the welder side, and then you'll have an adapter that'll go from the 120 to 240. I don't really like that. I plan on running this predominantly on 240. I have a 240 outlet, so that's the way that I'm going to run this. But it's nice to have this in case, you know, you're somewhere where you're kind of in a pinch and all you have around you is 120. Then you have this adapter that comes with it. Some of the cheaper ones don't even have this. You kind of have to source that separately. So that was a nice feature, and one of the reasons why I like this one over some of the other ones. And then the last thing is going to be the actual plasma torch itself. So when I first pulled this out of the box, I got to tell you, this doesn't feel very cheap at all. This feels like it's made of pretty good quality. The cutting torch is pretty robust. It's got a nice guard on there, you know, so you don't accidentally start the pilot arc. The other thing that's pretty nice that maybe you can or can't tell in the video is this part right here actually swivels a little bit, so it's not solid. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility while you're making your cuts, and you're not overly rigid. So that is kind of nice as well. It has your ceramic piece on here. It already has your standoff already attached to it, and then you've already got one of your nozzles on here as well as your tips. So that's pretty cool as well. Then it also comes with this plastic piece. This just goes and slides on like so. Just got to get it lined up, and then there it is. Now, one of the ways that you can tell if something is going to be a pilot arc or a contact start is you're going to either have this little red wire, maybe some of them are a different color, or you're not going to have this additional wire. If you don't have that additional wire, you probably didn't get a pilot arc or a non-touch start plasma cutter. And then this is for your trigger right here. This is just plugs into the front, and then of course you have your air hose for your torch as you're cutting. So upon further or initial unboxing, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with this. This is also a AG60P is the torch that comes with it. So if you're looking for consumables for this one, you're gonna probably want to look for the AG60P on Amazon. Probably get like 10 consumables or whatever for maybe 15 bucks, give or take. I haven't looked yet, so we'll see. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll get to the actual machine itself. So this is the BESTARC BTC. Getting into why I got this one over some of the others. Because I did look at the Yes Welder, I looked at the Reboot, and there was a couple things or features those had that this one doesn't have, but I didn't really think those were necessary. And one of the features that like the Yes Welder had was it had the 2T, 4T, which is your 2-touch, 4-touch. So basically 2 touches, you hold the trigger, and as soon as you release it, it stops cutting. The 4T is you hit the trigger, release it, it cuts. You hit the trigger, release it again, and then it stops cutting. I don't really care for that feature. I also have that on this Titanium 170, and I never use that feature. So that was something that didn't really matter to me. It might matter to you guys, wasn't a big deal for me. Now, another feature that I liked about this one over the others is you actually have your air pressure regulator adjustment in the front. On a lot of the other ones, you have a little regulator setup that you mount on the back. Didn't really care for that. I kind of want to be able to see my pressure at the front of the machine, where you're going to be spending the most of your time. You don't want to be moving the machine around, trying to look behind it while you're doing work. It's a waste of time, cumbersome, and it's just, frankly, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I like that it has the regulator on the front. It locks into place, so you pull this out, adjust it, set it to what you want, and it locks into place. That's another good feature. Now, another thing that I like about it is you can see your over temp light, and you can see if you're on 110 or 220. All of this is very easily viewed from the front. On the Yes Welder, a lot of that stuff was up here higher, couldn't really see it. I didn't really like that. I like that this is kind of right there in front of your face. Then on top of that, you have digital readouts for your amps and your post flow for your torch. So your amp adjustment is going to be right here. So this is a 50 amp. Does it do 50 amp? I don't know. It says it's rated for 50 amps, but I'm sure it should get pretty close to that off the 240. I know you're not going to hit that with 120, so the best you're going to probably get with 120 is maybe 15, 20 amps if you're lucky, but more than likely it's going to be 15 amps. Otherwise, you're going to be tripping that circuit breaker. Then you have your post flow. So your post flow is how long the air continues to blow through the torch to cool everything down prior to releasing the trigger. So you do want to have the post flow set for, you know, a short amount of time. It doesn't need to be running for 2 minutes. That's just a waste of air. But that's a nice feature about this, because I believe on the Yes Welder, that wasn't an option. You couldn't really control the post flow. It just ran for about 30 seconds and then cut off on its own. Whereas on this one, you have control of how long you want this to continue, you know, blowing air out of the nozzle, or how short you want it to shut off. So that's a cool feature. Now, I'm not too worried about air. I do have a 60-gallon air compressor, but for some of you guys that have those smaller air compressors, like, you know, a 10-gallon air compressor where, you know, you're trying to conserve as much air as possible, that might be a big deal for you. So you might want something where you can control that post flow. Now, another reason why I got this one over the other ones, this already has your connection for your airline. That was pretty nice. A lot of the other ones, they just kind of have this cheap airline barb or whatever that, you know, you end up having to change out and putting one of these on here. This already came with it. Another thing I liked about it, doesn't have your regulator on the back. And this part has a nice, you know, casing around it that kind of protects the your water filter. So down here, may or may not be able to see this very well, but you have your air filter, and right now it's in the up position, but once you have air pressure, it should drop down and then seal. Nice thing about it is when you remove your air hose, it automatically springs up, and whatever water is in here will drain out, so it won't collect. So that'll kind of, you know, it's another nice feature. You don't have to come back here and manually do that. It does it itself as soon as you release the air pressure. So that was some of the reasons why I got this one. There wasn't a whole lot of reviews on this on Amazon. I think there was like 140 reviews, give or take, at the time that I bought it, but there was about 4.5 stars, something like that. So I was, you know, I figured for 240 bucks, I got 30 days to return it. If there's anything wrong with it, might as well give it a shot. You know, some of the other ones are about $400 or $500. They're a little more expensive, and they really didn't have, you know, some of the features that this has, or they had features that I don't think I'm ever going to need, right? So I don't work, you know, in a metal fabrication shop where I'm cutting day in and day out. So something like this is probably going to be more than ample for someone like me, or maybe you guys at home that are, you know, kind of DIYers, and you don't need to spend a bunch of money on a Miller or a Lincoln or something like that. You just need something that'll get the job done here and there, and, you know, you're cutting 1/8 inch, or, you know, maybe you're going to try and cut quarter, but for the majority of us are probably not cutting anything, you know, bigger than 1/4 of an inch. If we are, we're not buying a machine like this, and we're probably not doing stuff at our house. So that was, you know, some of the reasons why I chose this model. So I got a project coming up with this 1990 Toyota pickup that I have. I'm currently rebuilding the engine for it right now and doing a bunch of body work. And then I'm going to be working on the transmission soon and replacing the clutch and all that. But I'm going to be cutting off the IFS suspension in front of this thing, and I'm going to be putting a straight axle in from a 1985 Toyota pickup. So I'm going to do an SAS on this truck here in the future as soon as I rebuild the axle and get a bunch of the other parts that I need to install it. Now I do have a grinder, but I figured that this plasma cutter was going to make cutting a lot of the IFS components out of the truck a whole lot easier. And I do plan on doing some projects, building some stuff where I'm going to need to maybe cut some steel. And while, yeah, you could use a grinder, it's not a very accurate way of cutting your metal. It's noisy. You got sparks and metal flying everywhere. Whereas with the plasma cutter, it's a little more contained, controlled. You get a nice clean cut, you know, especially on the smaller metals. And I just feel like this is probably going to be a faster, more convenient way of getting things done. So with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start connecting everything to the front of this machine. You guys are going to kind of, I guess, watch me do it, you know, live as it's happening, so you guys kind of get a feel for what you're going to have to deal with. Another thing that I wanted to note, one more reason why I got this was because there's really no assembly. All the other ones, you had to put the regulator together, and you know, that's not a big deal, but it's time consuming. This, realistically, I think we should have this probably put together in maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll go ahead and start getting everything connected. So first things first, we'll go ahead. I'm not going to cut that zip tie just because it's going to keep things a little bit neater. We'll go ahead, connect our grounding cable. It just drops in, and then you just give it a 1/4 turn, and that is locked in. That's all you got to do. That was pretty easy. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our port set up. Now, I believe the reason they gave us that Teflon tape is probably for this connection right here. I'm going to try to install it without the Teflon tape first, and then if it starts leaking, once we get air applied, then I'll go ahead and then take it off and then put the Teflon tape on there just to conserve a little bit of air. So let's go ahead, we'll go and connect this part down here. And I think that is about it. Yep, there we go. Next thing we're going to go ahead and connect is the trigger wire. This is going to be the part that actually commands the Pilot Arc on and off. So we'll go ahead, get that connected. This is keyed, so make sure you got this lined up properly. You don't want to damage it. So we got that connected, and then the last thing you want is the cable for your Pilot Arc. So that's going to go right here where your red connector is. And the nice part about this is if you, let's say you don't know where anything goes, it has diagrams right there, so it makes it foolproof. And I mean, this is self-explanatory. You would have to really try to connect something in the wrong spot and make that work. I don't even know how that would be possible. All right, so we got all that connected. Next thing we're going to do, I know I said that I'm going to use this on 240 mainly, but for right now I think what I'm going to do is just connect a 120 extension cord to this just to see if it fires up and everything works, and then I'll try and get my air hose connected to it and see if my air hose actually works with the fitting that's on here. If not, I'll probably have to take this one off and swap it out for one that I have. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this thing plugged in. Now the on-off switch is going to be on the back of the machine. We'll go ahead and get the adapter on here, get this plugged in, and what we're going to do first is we're just going to see if this power's on. I don't have any air connected to it yet. I just want to make sure that this turns on and works properly. All right, so now it's on, it's powered up, it's going through a, I guess, a startup sequence. So right here, it says minimum amps is 15, and you can turn it all the way up to, looks like 35 amps. So I guess it won't let you go any higher than 35 amps on 110, 120. I don't even think we're gonna get 35 amps, you know, just because you can't get that out of 110, 120 anyways. So that's pretty cool. So we'll just back this back down to 15 for now. And then for your post flow, right here, it's set to 2, and you can adjust it in increments. So I'm not sure if that's seconds after you're done. I'm guessing it is because there's an S here, so it's probably seconds, but we'll just, right now, we'll just leave it back down here at 2. So let's go see if we can get this air hose connected and see if it leaks or if I can even get this to work. All right, so got the regulator turned on. The air compressor I got set to 60. I think they say the best pressure to run this at is probably like 65 max. So we just got it set to 60 for right now. regulator is, I don't know if it's all the way down or up, so we'll just kind of start with it there and we'll go ahead and connect it. So yeah, connected just fine. Doesn't really seem to be leaking. The automatic water relief actually set and sealed. I don't hear any leaks over there. And then looking on the front of this thing, it currently says we are about, I would say 40 PSI at the moment, so that's pretty good. So as of right now, not exactly sure what this is for because it seems like it's working just fine. So now we'll go ahead and get this stuff out of the way, put it off to the side for right now. But we'll just take the ground clamp and we're just going to ground it to this welding table for now. And then when we get ready to try and cut something, we'll clamp it to the material itself. So in all reality, this should work. Pilot arc should start. So if I squeeze this trigger, if we did everything right, we should get a flame. And looks like it's working just fine. And then you can hear the post flow just kick off. And then another cool feature about this plasma cutter is it's got a cooling fan that only operates when you're actually operating the torch itself. So it doesn't continuously run the whole time. So like my titanium welder, the second you kick it on, that fan's constantly running. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just a waste of power. And you know, it's just constantly sucking in more dirt when it doesn't really need to be running. Whereas on here, this will run for, you know, a predetermined time until it senses, you know, it's not needed anymore, and then it'll automatically cut this off. So that's pretty cool as well. So this sounds like it was working just fine. It was sputtering, so I don't know if that's just because the air pressure was too low. So we'll go ahead and crank this up some. And then we'll give it a squeeze. All right, so I think right now I'm limited on air just because of the regulator on the wall. So let me go adjust that real fast and then we'll come back and take a look at this. Alright, so I don't know if you guys can see that, I just adjusted the regulator on the wall, but what I'm talking about is this gauge right here just went up to 60, so that's pretty cool. We'll go ahead, kind of bleed that off a little bit, so now we're down to about 50. So yeah, when it was sputtering, it's because I didn't have enough air. Now, I guess that's not the case. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about here. So either way, that seems to be working at the moment. What we're going to do is we'll just grab a piece of metal and see if we can't cut it up real fast and see how well this thing works on 120. Because I feel like I'm going to probably be using 240 most of the time with this, but we'll just see what it can do with 120. So let me go find some metal to cut. Alright, so we just got this piece of angle iron right here. We're just going to go ahead, clamp it down to the workstation, and then just see if we can't do a little cutting on it. Get that a little bit tighter. Alright, so there we go. Now, I've got this set to right around 50, 60. This is set to 15 amps. We're going to just kind of bump this up. We'll just go full 35, see what happens, and then for the post flow, we'll just set it to 30. And then I'm going to take my ground clamp itself and actually ground to the metal we're about to cut. I think it's just better if you can grounded to the metal itself, just go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead and grab this welding helmet. I'm going to set it to the grinding mode just because this isn't going to be super bright, but I also want to protect my eyes. So I just got this titanium auto darkening helmet. I do really like this thing a lot. Alright, so let's go ahead and give this a shot and see what happens here. Alright, so you're not seeing doubles. There's two of them here. Reason being is that one right there was the one that I was originally doing the video on. It wasn't working right on 120. It was sputtering, which was having some issues. So had them send me a new one. This one, no problems on 120, 240, everything works good there. So this one's going back. So realistic review, sometimes that happens. Does it make it any worse? No, it just means that one just had a small issue. It worked fine on 240, it just wasn't working on 120. So this one right over here, this one's good to go. So yeah, I'll be doing some more videos of this thing cutting so you guys can see it, but for $240 definitely isn't bad. So stay tuned for more videos. Just got a media blaster, which is over here. Just got this today, well actually yesterday, but I guess the light's got to cool down or something. I was just using it, light was just on. I don't know if that's like a fail-safe, but I've been blasting some parts. These are some of the parts that just came out of there. They look brand new again. I just got this one delivered from Canada because the one that I had on there was all busted. But yeah, stay tuned. Plenty more content coming up on this show.